Good morning, Beacon. I am the Reverend Emily Bogus, coming to you live, though virtual, from Beacon's historic sanctuary here in Summit, New Jersey, on the land of the Lenni Lenape. 1 hour to madness and joy. A line from the poet Walt Whitman, and a title that we chose a month ago that has taken on quite new meaning this week. For once again, our lives have turned on a dime in the course of an hour, a day, and a week. On Monday, I spoke to a local public health official who shared with me the good news that Beacon could continue in-person services indefinitely. Mask, 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 she said. It is our mantra. We have been vigilant here at Beacon, and yet what we couldn't foresee was how quickly COVID-19 and its variants would progress here in New Jersey in just a matter of days. Yesterday, in the course of our staff's weekly PCR testing, Reverend Robin, my co-minister, tested positive for COVID. Thankfully, she is asymptomatic, and we continue our prayers for her health and for that of her family. And so our lives have turned on a dime, and we decided that today we would return to all virtual gatherings so that our staff could be tested. That means that today at 11:15, our worship service will again be broadcast virtually over Facebook and YouTube. Our preschool, pre-K through 5th grade classes will be meeting via Zoom. Families, please check your inboxes for those links. And instead of crafting as a spiritual practice here in our lobby, we are going to have Zoom gatherings. Again, please check our website. There is no youth group today. Beacon, we are taking it one step at a time as we learn new information, and we will be making sure to communicate with you as much as possible. Please keep checking our website and your inboxes. I do want to note, Beacon, that Walt Whitman's line holds both madness and joy. It doesn't matter how we show up. It matters that we show up, whether that be in person or virtual, because that is where the joy is. When we show up for one another, even if it's over the telephone, we know how to do this now. And sharing a ritual together, even if it is over Zoom, it is not what we wanted. But we can still show up for one another. Both poets and angels share with us a deeper knowing in times of madness and uncertainty. Be not afraid, they say. I bring you tidings of great joy. There is still joy here, beloved. Let us together look for it, cherish it, and bring it to one another. Beacon, breathe. When you breathe in peace. When you breathe out joy, and know that we are ready for joy when it comes. Now let us begin again with our prelude.
On this last Sunday of Advent, we celebrate the birth of a holy child. This week's candle represents love. Love for the coming of a child who was not born in a splendid palace, but in a manger. Yet kings came to behold him. Behold him for the love he was going to bring on this earth. The message of that baby is a message for all of us, that you, beloved, are worthy of love, regardless of your race, gender, sexual orientation, or social status. That you, just as you are beautiful and deserving of all that the earth has to offer. This baby would grow into a wise teacher that would spread this word, that all people have inherent worth. He would be one of the first peaceful warriors to teach that blessed are the poor, the meek, the hungry, and the peacemakers. And blessed are you. In our faith, every birth is holy, and every child is worthy of great love, acceptance, and hope, in a future filled with justice and peace. We light this chalice in solidarity with immigrant children who come here for that hope and love, and for all the children who go to bed hungry or who are unhoused. We honor them with this flame and this light, that they are worthy of love. And we light this chalice as our commitment to a betterment of this earth and to the commitment of creating equity for all those holy children who inhabit it with us. And we carry this flame of truth with us always.
Late one winter night, long past my bedtime, my pa and I went owling. There was no wind. Everything was still, and the moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew, a long, low, almost sad song. A farm dog answered the train. Another dog joined in, and they sang out, trains and dogs. When their voices faded away, it was again as quiet as a dream. We walked on towards the wood, my pa and I. Our feet crunched into the crisp snow, and little gray footprints followed us. When you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Pa says. We reached the line of the pine trees, pointy and black against the sky, and Pa held up his hand. I stopped right there and waited. The moonlight made his face into a silver mask. Then he called, "Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo!" The sound of the great horned owl. He did it again. Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo! And then again. Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo-hoo! Hoo! After each call, he fell silent, and for a moment we both listened. But no answer came. We walked on, and I could feel the cold, like an icy hand, palm down on my back. My mouth felt furry from the warm, wet scarf protecting my face. My nose and the tops of my cheeks felt both cold and hot at the same time. But I never said a word. When you go owling, you have to be quiet and make your own heat. A clearing appeared in the woods. I sighed aloud at the beauty of it, and Pa held up his hand at the sound. I put my mittens over my scarf over my mouth and listened hard. And then Pa called, "Hoo-hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo." I listened and looked so hard that my ears and my eyes got cloudy with cold. Pa raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. Pa almost smiled. Then he called back as if he and the owl were talking about supper, or about the woods, or the moon, or the cold. The owl's call came closer, from high up in the trees on the edge of the clearing. Nothing around us moved. Suddenly, an owl shadow lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently with heat in our mouths, the heat of all those words we had not spoken. The shadow hooted again. Click! Pa turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl just as it was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. Then the owl pumped its great wings and lifted off the branch like a shadow without sound. It flew back into the forest. "Time to go home," Pa said to me. I knew then I could talk. I could even laugh out loud. But I was a shadow as we walked home. When you go owling, you don't need words or warmth or anything but hope. That's what Pa says. The kind of hope that flies on silent wings under a shining owl moon.
Hello. Each week we reflect on the fullness of life, both its joys and sorrows, the struggles and celebrations we are experiencing, individually, here in our Beacon community, and within the wider world. Let's begin by putting our hands on our hearts. Feel your heart beating and now sense our collective experience and presence with you. If there is a struggle in your heart, we invite you to give this struggle some space and mindful attention. And if you are inspired to do so, place a heart emoji in the chat to signify self-compassion for your sorrows and struggles, be they the loss or suffering of someone dear, a financial hardship, an illness, or strains in your personal relationships. We also invite you to lift up in the chat the names of those you hold dear who may be struggling so that we can hold them together and support and care for each other's sorrows. Today, we light a candle for all those who lost their lives or lost loved ones or are suffering from the extreme tornadoes impacting Kentucky and the Midwest. We also light a candle of remembrance for the victims of gun violence in our schools and communities, with a special heartfelt remembrance for the Sandy Hook Elementary School victims and their families impacted by a horrific school shooting 9 years ago. In turn, let's light a candle to acknowledge all those who are working hard to end gun violence in our communities and recognize, as President Biden said this week, as a nation, we owe all these families more than our prayers. We owe them action. Together, Beacon, let's affirm and celebrate the actions the Sandy Hook survivors and our fellow Americans are taking to reduce gun violence and create communities of peace and safety for our children. And we light a candle in praise of our Beacon community and our UU principles as we work toward the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. For this is the work that kindles hope and a return to light. Together, let's cherish and share all the beauty and joy in our lives. Please take another moment. Lift up a celebration in your life, your hard work, your positive actions, a birthday, an anniversary, a new beginning, and good endings. Maybe place your hand on your heart again. Reflect on all your joys, big and small. Feel how a sense of gratitude can expand within your heart, and know Beacon celebrates you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Saba, known to Beacon as Elizabeth Siegel. My husband and I were married by Reverend Emily Boggess just last year. I've been a member of the Beacon community since my early childhood, and some of my first memories were singing This Little Light of Mine in the sanctuary. I went through the religious education program, I taught RE, and I served as co-chair of the youth group. There are two memories that resonate most with me at Beacon. Serving as a youth group co-chair helped build my confidence and provided a community of young people outside of school with whom I felt supported, encouraged, and connected. I remember Beacon hosting people in unstable living conditions or without homes, and the youth group provided support by serving meals and playing with their children. Another memory was going to the food bank and helping pack and distribute goods to the community. It was fun and it was rewarding. These are just two of many moments of giving back that land with me because they forced me to step outside of myself, recognize the interconnectedness of us all in true UU fashion, and focus on others, which doesn't come naturally in adolescence. These were formative years for me, and these experiences of social action left an indelible mark. I went on to receive my master's degree in social work years later, and I now work in criminal justice reform, running programs for the justice-impacted community, and working on policy change. I do think it was Beacon that helped cultivate my social justice spirit, which nourishes me every day. So with that, I'll close with the following. The truth is that we create this community called Beacon together. You and me, us. Our mission comes alive through our relationships, our voices, our leadership, and our gifts. Now, we move into a time where we give generously to support making that mission come alive in our lives and in the world. In a minute, you'll see ways to contribute to Beacon. We invite you to lean into this practice of generosity. I know firsthand it makes a difference. Thank you.
Honey? My kids call me Honey. A long story made short, I was gone from them for about 5 months, where I would visit once a month. And in my absence, I would call my wife each and every day and say, "Can you put the kids on the phone?" "Sure, honey, just a second." And then one day I made my visit and I walked through the door ready to surprise them, and they surprised me by shouting, "Honey's home!" And so the name was born. Flash forward. It's 9:32 p.m. and Benjamin, 3.5, should be sound asleep, but he is instead staring out his window at the very top of the trees. "Honey, will the sun come back?" "It always comes back, baby." I chuckle at the innocence and ignorance of a 3.5-year-old, and I sigh with relief at the ease of answering such a straightforward, innocent question and allaying all worry. But then he pauses and slowly turns to me. "But it didn't for the dinosaurs. The sun didn't come back." "Touché, little dude." He goes on to tell me about a great explosion that made the sun gone. Thanks, YouTube kids. Now I have the existential dread of a comet crashing to Earth and blotting out the sun. I explained to him again how the sun comes back and he is soon asleep. But now I am wide awake. We tend to think of the ancient practices, like the practices of winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, of gathering logs and building a great fire and waiting on that shortest day for the sun's return, as antiquated, right? And ignorant, lacking the truth, of course, of modern science. And in some measure, I suppose, that's an accurate rendering. But there's another truth, because there could be a day when the sun doesn't return. For us, a splosion, to quote Benjamin, a pandemic, a civil war, cataclysmic climate change, mass extinction. I am a lot of fun at a holiday party, friends. The poet Walt Whitman says, 1 hour to madness and joy. O furious, O confine me not. What is this, he asks, that frees me so in storms? From leaves of grass, 1 hour to madness and joy. Against the backdrop of the steady buzz of anxiety, solstice and these ancient rituals tell us to stop. Don't run. Be still and stare at the top of trees when the earth has her shortest day and the light seems so little and fleeting. Sit in the darkness together. Sit with your fears that the earth will not render life again, that sun will not bring warmth again, and wait together in that hour of madness and joy. Solstice, beloved, is a powerful form of resistance. On Monday, I went to Washington, D.C. to join hundreds of folks from all over the country. Over 1,000 of us gathered to voice our support and insistence and demands for Build Back Better and full voting rights. Testifier after testifier came forward, telling their stories of how they have to choose between buying groceries or paying for gas, how there aren't living wages from West Virginia to North Carolina and here in New Jersey. Story after story of voter ID requirements, of limited early voting, of loss of Sunday voting, and how hard it is for folks to access the ballot in so many places across this country, how our democracy is in peril. We gathered in D.C. at a time of year when D.C. is at its finest in terms of decoration. It was hard to turn somewhere in the city and not see a Christmas tree, a wreath, or lights. Union Station had a glittering tower of a Christmas tree, and there was another one at the White House and one just beyond where we were gathered at the Capitol. I stared at that Christmas tree, thinking hard about the people inside that building who were debating and considering and holding up passage of Build Back Better just as December 15th was looming, the day the last child tax credit check will be issued. Without Build Back Better, it was hard to imagine Christmas trees or holiday cheer or hope in the new year for families and children. And then the speeches were ended and we moved into the street. We formed a circle and we sang, and when they told us to move, we stayed still. Stillness is a form of nonviolent resistance to injustice. Solstice, beloved, is a form of nonviolent resistance to the fabricated fears and the false manufactured worlds. The winter solstice says, be together in this darkness. Gather a fire and stare toward the sky. Poet Joy Harjo explains it like this. In the last days of the fourth world, I wish to make a map for those who would climb through the hole in the sky. My only tools were the desires of humans as they emerged from the killing fields, from the bedrooms and the kitchens. For the soul is a wanderer with many hands and feet. The map must be made of sand and can't be read by ordinary light. It must carry fire to the next tribal town for renewal of spirit. A map must be made of sand, beloved. There's a well-known tale from Parker Palmer of homes in the Midwest out in the fields where in winter a rope is tied from the barn to the house. Because in snowstorms where whiteout conditions prevail, people had gotten lost trying to find their way back home and had frozen to death just feet from their home because they were disoriented. Palmer writes of how that rope was a guide that you would hold onto hand pull by hand pull until you found your way home. The ancients tell us that we are the rope. Like a map made of sand, we gather generation to generation to sit in the darkness and discover the world. To be still, not as the absence of movement, but as the presence of love. To be still and rest in a Sabbath that is resistance to violence and fear. A couple weeks ago, the board gathered to discern how to more deeply live into our mission and how to dismantle systemic racism. One of our board members, Ellie Muska, gathered us in a meditation and encouraged us throughout the day to notice our bodies, our breath, and when we were getting out of rhythm. Sometime later in the meeting, our energy had become ungrounded, and you could tell we were breathing up here, not connected to our whole body. And Ellie had the presence of mind to say, "Would you breathe with me?" We exhaled, and you felt the energy ground again. The way forward is not in a strategic plan or a self-help book or even the best of blogs. The ancient ones tell us we sit in the darkness together. Our fear swells, and as we face the stillness, we pause when everything cries urgency. We are still when the powers shout move. We are slow when we are nudged to hurry, hurry, hurry. Honey, will the sun come back tomorrow? I seized with fear and realize as I catch his face in the glow of his owl nightlight that sits on his play table, he's not afraid when he asks this question. Benjamin doesn't know to fear the sun's departure or worry for its return, or mine, or a friend, or even his own. We are staring together now as the darkness is illumined by a moon, and we both exhale. For this moment, now moments before it's really late, there are thousands of reasons to fear. Benjamin takes my hand with a knowing. Nature tells us, do not fear the darkness, for it is there you can find the map made of sand. There together you form the rope to guide us all back. Happy solstice, beloved. Happy solstice.
I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me. I've been downhearted. Yes, I've been downhearted. I've been downhearted, but I won't be down for long, 'cause I'm gonna be ready. Yes, I'm gonna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me. I've I've been too long crying. I've been too long crying. I've been too long crying, Lord. I ain't gonna cry no more. Yes, I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. When joy comes back to me. I felt tied to the ground. I felt tied to the ground, Lord. I felt tied to the ground, Lord. I'm getting lighter every day. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me. I've been surrounded by midnight. I've been surrounded by midnight. I've been surrounded by midnight, but the sun's gonna warm my face. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready when joy comes back to me.
Come, beloved, we are indeed a people of light bearers and light casters. But remember, too, in these days and nights, the balance. Darkness to heal and hold us, to quiet the noise and call forth the wisdom. Darkness to still the fears and call us toward a truer light, a light that can never be extinguished. May that light go with you in this season. Happy solstice.